Chapter 3: A Witch's Daughter. Tyler, would you mind accompanying Mr. Cook to the castle to deliver some supplies to the Havens? Sheriff Gale asked. Sure thing, he said happily as he wanted to see Leah. They left for the castle as soon as the sun rose. Meanwhile, Arya trembled as she stepped into the castle gates at the early hours of the morning. She was scolded by the director of the orphanage since she was supposed to arrive days ago, but was terrified to come to the castle. The door opened to reveal one of the maids who was wearing a white gown with black embroidery. What are you doing, standing there, child? Get in. The girl then walked over to the door frantically. Well, aren't you going to introduce yourself? My name is Arya, I was sent by the mayor's family to come help. My name is April. Come this way, she said, as she led her to the greenhouse. The girl bit her lip when she saw the dry overgrown vegetation, the dirty glass panels along with the dusty furniture. Disgusting, right? The tools you need are right there, she said as she pointed to the corner. Pull everything out and throw them outside, we will be replacing everything later. Once you're done with that, you can start cleaning, April said as they stood by the shadow of the doorway. Any questions? Arya shook her head in response. Good, now get cleaning, April said as she left the girl to clean by herself. So what's your impression of the new girl, April? Not much yet. You think she's going to become a vampire, or just be a vamp like us? May, you and I both know that the success rate of making a newborn vampire is 1 in 1,000. The only successful newborn the Havens created is June, April said with anger in her eyes as they walked through the dark hallways of the castle. The other maids, themselves cleaning each room with the window closed. April narrowed her eyes as they saw June opening some of the windows. June turned to April and May and said, Please open up the windows when you're done cleaning. You might raise red flags if the townspeople notice the windows being closed in broad daylight. You really want us to die, don't you, June? April said in a monotone voice. Of course not, April. I'm just looking after the family, June said and smiled as she stood in front of the window while April and May stood in the shadows. After June left, May sneered. Don't mind her, she just thinks she's better than everyone because she became a full vampire. At the front door of the castle, a wagon full of supplies were brought to the courtyard. Here are some welcome gifts for you, Mrs. Haven. Oh, thank you. It seems that none of my maids are standing by the door. Would you mind bringing it inside? Ingrid said as she realized that she stood alone. The delivery boy, along with the town's baker, were taken aback by her request. What's wrong? Why are you afraid to come inside? They all turned to see Leah standing in the hall. Why don't we just use the back door to the kitchen? Tyler said with a smile. Splendid, Ingrid said with a smile, then she turned around and walked back inside. Leah, on the other hand, went out to follow them to the back door. You didn't know that you had a back door? Tyler said as he walked along with Leah. Why should I? I don't go to the kitchen. Right, you have your servants bring it up for you. What's with that sarcasm? Nothing, Tyler said as he looked around. I see that your garden needs some work done. You refuse to come inside, but you're fine working outside. Hearing their conversations, the coachman and Mr. Cook, the baker, carried the supplies to the kitchen by themselves. Finally, we've been waiting all morning, a maid said. Just set those down here and just put the bread and the pies on the table. Here, have some water, another maid said. Meanwhile, June went to the greenhouse where Arya was. Oh, my goodness, they left you here all by yourself, June said as she saw Arya sweating while pulling the dead plants. No, I'm fine. Nonsense, you've been working since dawn. Have you had breakfast yet? Arya fell silent as her stomach growled. Mr. and Mrs. Haven, they want you to join them. Come on. Yes, the girl said as she followed along. She was amazed by the size of the castle's interior. She passed by a hall with a lot of windows on one side and saw Tyler talking to Leah at the garden. Then she entered a room with a staircase. Leah seems to have taken a liking into that boy, Mr. Havens said as he watched his daughter from the terrace. I know she hasn't looked at a boy in 400 years. Mrs. Havens said happily. I pity any boy who gets caught by her. The last time she turned someone it didn't work out very well. John said as he looked out to the distance. If you like this story so far, subscribe so we can reach 1,000 subscribers. On that note, what do you think of the girl that the town has bought in for us? I've learned to expect the worst. We don't necessarily have a good success rate, just as Ingrid was done speaking. June brought Arya in. Come on. Come say hi, child. Mr. and Mrs. Haven looked at each other and smiled. Oh my, look how beautiful. Your name is Arya, correct? Mrs. Haven said with a smile. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Haven then asked. How old are you? 10. Mrs. Haven then bent down to her level and asked. Child, instead of working here, you stay with us permanently as our daughter? Arya's eyes widened and she turned to Mr. Haven. Meanwhile, over the garden. Just a heads up, my parents are interested in fostering Arya. Tyler then stared at Leah. She then continued. Mother has been heartbroken since my brothers died. Do you think we can persuade the priest and the mayor to let Arya stay here for the meantime? You're okay with that? Tyler asked. What? You think I'm going to be jealous over a 10-year-old? Or are you worried about her being a so-called witch's daughter? Leah asked nonchalantly. Well, yes. Most people in their right mind would want to stay away. He said with a worry expression. I wouldn't worry about it. She's only 10, by the way, how did your dad react to the news about the wolf? Yeah, he kind of went off when I told him about it last night. He said he was going to meet with the mayor to talk about it when I left. Does he believe that it's a wolf? Listen, Leah, it's best if you forget about what you saw. Believe me, it's best if you stay away. She smirked and said. You just called me Leah. Tyler then became flustered. I didn't mean to. It's all right. I'm not a lady anyway. She started walking and continued. We made our fortune through our businesses. We might be as wealthy as some of the nobles in the country, but we don't have a title. The only way to get it is to marry into nobility. It's hard enough to become a member of the landed gentry, much less an aristocrat. But you are a lady, now. Lest you forget that you just inherited this estate. Tyler said with a smile. Leah stared at the sun and said. I won't be for very long, lest you forget, ladies can't inherit their father's estate. I should have worn my cape. You cold? No, I just burned so easily. Back in Wallachia, it's not exactly proper for someone of my stature to be outside all day. Women who lived outside their houses were gypsies basically. How can someone ever mistake you for a gypsy? You look beautiful today, by the way, white and black, it really suits you. Well, the mourning period ends tomorrow, so I thought I might as well end it a day early. Anyway, how about we invite your father, the mayor, and the priest to dinner with us here tonight? Leah said as she narrowed her eyes at Tyler. The mayor usually has lunch at my family's tavern. Why don't we go there now? Leah shook her head and said. Didn't I just say that women who lived outside their houses are gypsies? Tyler smiled and said. No one will ever mistake you for being a gypsy. Leah sighed and glanced at the castle. Augustine, can you get me my cape, please? She said to one of the maids. Yes, my lady. Would you also like me to prepare the carriage for you? Leah turned to Tyler. You don't mind waiting, do you? And then responded with a smile. She then turned to Augustine. Sure, go ahead. Oh, wait. What about your companions? They then went to the kitchen to find Mr. Cook and the coachman laughing with two other maids. You all having fun? Leah said with a smile, and the four of them stood up. Mistress, what are you doing down here? Am I not allowed to come here, Octavia? No, it's not proper. Well, we better get going, thank you for your hospitality, ladies, Mr. Cook said as he left. Tyler just smiled at the chubby old man and the coachman. Just then, Augustine walked in. Oh, there you are, my lady. The coach is waiting for you outside, and here is your cape. Thank you, Augustine, Leah said as she took the cape. Let's go, Tyler. They then went to town. When they arrived, Tyler got out of the carriage first to help Leah get off safely. They then heard the commotion by the square. What's happening? Leah asked curiously as the townspeople yelled. Everyone, we have things under control. I promise the creature won't be able to hurt anyone, the sheriff yelled. This is that witch's fault. It hasn't stopped because she's still here. Leah was shocked when she saw Emma talking as if she were a madwoman with no common sense. Like this story, comment, and subscribe to be notified when the next chapter comes out.